नमस्कार येवकार. प्रुडंटाच्या ह्या बजेटाचेर खाशा पंचनाम्याक तुमकां येवकार. दर वर्सा तुमी पळयतात आमची बजेटाची एनालिसीस हो प्रोग्राम मुख्यमंत्र्यान आतां बजेट मांडलां. आमी काय आंकडे म्हणटना हांव आमचे फाटले जे बजेट पंचनामे आसा इतल्या वर्सांचे ताजे कशें क्रॉस चॅक जाता आनी कशें ते टॅली जाता ताजे काय एक सुरवातीक एक दोन फिगर्स सांगता आनी देन वी वील मूव टू पॅनलिस्ट. आय विल इंट्रोड्यूस यू टू पॅनलिस्ट. मुख्यमंत्र्यान 28,162 कोटीचें बजेट मांडलां. रेवेन्यू 22,703 कोटीचो प्रोजेक्ट केला. कॅपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर 7,363 कोटी. इंट्रेस्टिंगली रेवेन्यू सरप्लस बजेट मांडलां वर्थ अराउंड 2403 crores. फिस्कल डेफिसीट म्हणजे लोन जें लागता प्रोजेक्ट प्लॅन एक्झिक्यूट करपाक ओन्ली 2,856. 7,363 कोटीचें कॅपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर आनी बॉरोईंग जें आसा इंट्रेस्टिंगली फक्त 2,856 कोटी. गोंयकारांचो GDP पर कॅपिटा GDP 9.69 लॅक्सार पावतलो. जवळ जवळ 10 लाख जोडटलो प्रत्येक गोंयकार. कारण GDP इज प्रोजेक्टेड टू बी 1.38 lakh crore इन दीस फिस्कल कमिंग फिस्कल म्हणजे 14.27% ग्रोथ. पूण इंट्रेस्टिंग हें कित्याक तें मागीर आमी पळोवया. बजेट सायज इज जस्ट अप by 5% compared to last year. When government says GDP 14.27% वाडटा, रेवेन्यू वाडटा 15% पूण बजेट फक्त 5% वाडटा. आतां हें अशें कित्याक करता सरकार जाल्यार लेट मी कम टू द फिगर्स. सरकाराचो डेटाचेर फाटलें जें लोन घेतिल्लें आसा आतां पर्यंत ताजेर इंट्रेस्ट पेमेंट वता 2,297 कोटी हो रेवेन्यूंतल्यान वता. आनी रिपेमेंट ऑफ डेट जो प्रिंसिपल आसा तो बॉरोईंगांतल्यान वता. आनी इंट्रेस्टिंगली इट इज 2,023 crores म्हणजे जवळ जवळ 4,500 कोटी सरकाराचे आज रीण भरपाक वता इंट्रेस्ट प्लस प्रिंसिपल. आता सरकार फिस्कल डेफिसीट म्हणल्यार प्रोविजन करता फक्त 2,826 कोटीचें म्हणजे सगळें घेतिल्लें रीण भरपाक गेलें प्लस आनीक लागता रीण भरपाक. सो वयर जे 2,000 कोटी 2,400 कोटी सरकार रेवेन्यू सरप्लसां दाखयता तेय सरकार काडटलो आनी रीण भरपाक घालतलो. सो एज सच तें नलिफाय जातलें. दुसरी गजाल कंपेर्ड टू अवर पास्ट आमी प्रोजेक्ट करतात सदांच प्रोजेक्शन्स रेवेन्यू. 2 वर्सां फाटल्या बजेटाचे ऑडिटेड अकाउंट्स आज आयल्यात. बजेटेड फिगर्स आज आयल्या. आमी प्रोजेक्ट केल्लें की सरकारान जरी 20,000 कोटीचो रेवेन्यू प्रोजेक्ट केलो इट वील हॉवर अराउंड 18,000 crores. आज फिगर आयला 23-24 ऑडिटेड फिगर्स आसा नवे बजेटां एंड इट इज 18,285 crores whereas projected was around 21,500 crores. सो तुमकां कळटलें की प्रुडंटाची प्रोजेक्शन्स जी आसा सो त्या वेळान आयचो एस्टिमेट असो की हें जें 2,000 प्लस सरप्लस दाखयलां तो रेवेन्यू आज जो सरकार 22,703 कोटी येतलो म्हणून दाखयता तो फक्त 20,500 म्हऱ्या आसतलो. आनी इट वील फॉल शॉर्ट ऑफ 2,000 crores. थंय 2,000 crores डेफिसीट येतलें. हें रेवेन्यू डेफिसीट ताका नलिफाय जातलें प्लस सरकाराक रीण भरपाक आनीक 4,500 कोटीक 2,800 कोटी धरल्या आनीक पयशे लागतले. म्हणून सरकारान सरप्लस दाखयलां आनी सरकारान कसलोच ARM दाखोवना. इन टर्न सरकार मोठ्या प्रमाणात सेंट्रल गव्हर्मेंटाचे डिपेंडंट आसा फॉर रेवेन्यू. आता काय 1-2-3 स्कीम सांगता एंड देन वील मूव टू पॅनलिस्ट. ह्या बजेटाक सरकार युनिफायड पेन्शन स्कीम जी आसा नवी NPS जाल्ली पयलींची ओल्ड NPS आनी ओल्ड OPS आनी NPS मदली जी सरकारान युनिफायड पेन्शन स्कीम काडल्या ती सरकार खंय इम्प्लिमेंट करतलो. सो इट विल कॉस्ट एडिशनल कारण अश्योर्ड पेन्शन आसता 50% ऑफ बेसीक. PPP डिपार्टमेंट सरकार फॉर्म करता म्हणटा दिस इज एक शिनाल इंडस्ट्रीक म्हज्या सायडीन बसला त्या 7 कोटी खर्चून PPP डिपार्टमेंट खंय सुरू करतले. टॅक्स हॉलिडे फॉर 3 स्टार हॉटेल्स इन इंटरलँड, टॅक्सी आनी बसीक सबसिडी EV खातीर, प्रत्येक आमदाराक मतदारसंघांनी 100 कोटी रुपया दरेक मतदारसंघात 100 कोटी. आता दुसरी फिगर्स काय कॉलेप्स जाले जी फाटली ती आनी सांगता विच वी आर प्रेडिक्टेड बाय अस इन 2 years बॅक पंचनामा. ग्रांट इन एड जे सरकार 1,500 कोटी म्हणटा ते वास्तवीक फक्त 966 कोटी आयलां 2 वर्सां फाटीं. सो थंय एक्सपेक्टेड येना. आता इतल्याचेर हांव हांव आंकडे सांगना, आंकडे सांगल्यार तुमी चड घुसपतले. नाव वी वील मूव टू पॅनलिस्ट. पयलीं इंडस्ट्रीची रिएक्शन घेवया ह्या बजेटाचेर. इंडस्ट्रीक तातूंत कितें बरें दिसलां म्हणजे वेदर देअर प्लॅन्स बजेट जावचे पयलीं ते आपले वीश लिस्ट दितात गव्हर्मेंटाक. वेदर देअर प्लान्स ऑर वेदर देअर वीश लिस्ट, वेदर देअर एक्सपेक्टेशन्स तांकां कितें तरी तडीक लागतली अशी दिसता काय कितें ह्या बजेटाक. आय वील फर्स्ट इंट्रोड्यूस CIIचे हर्ष रजनी आमचे बरोबर आसात. ही इज रिप्रेझेंटींग CII कन्फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडियन इंडस्ट्री. रोहन भंडारी ही इज अ चार्टर्ड अकाउंटंट रिप्रेझेंटींग गोवा चेंबर ऑफ कॉमर्स अँड इंडस्ट्री. म्हणजे दावे वटेन आसात TTAGचे जॅक सुखिजा ही इज प्रेसिडेंट फॉर TTAG ट्रॅव्हल अँड टुरिझम असोसिएशन, ट्रॅव्हल मळा खातीर. इंडस्ट्री जाली, CII जाली, टुरिझम जाली. अँड फोर्थ इज राजेश सेठ हू इज अ प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ क्रेडाय दॅट्स रियल इस्टेट. म्हणजे गोंयाक ज्यो सद्याक इंडस्ट्री तातले तातूंत सर्वायव जातात ती मागीर एक लिकर इंडस्ट्री आसूं, लो टॅक्स आशिल्ल्यान मातशी पेट्रोलियम आनी तिसली रियल इस्टेट, बाकीचो खंयच मोठो रेवेन्यू असो येता असो दिसना पोस्ट GST. सो हे चारय एलिमेंट, चारय स्टेक होल्डर म्हजे बरोबर रिप्रेझेंट हांगा करतात. आय विल फर्स्ट मूव टू GCCI. रोहन बाब, तुमकां ह्या बजेटांतल्यान कितें आशा दिसली?
I think, thank you for having me. Making a budget is a very difficult task, and it is more difficult, when you have got a lot of loan repayments which get due for the next year. But I think kudos to the Chief Minister. I think there is a lot of positives in this budget. Goa Chamberani, we had given certain recommendations. Again, we are very happy to see that many of our recommendations have been taken. The main, if you look at the main matter which you are very, very happy with is that there are no new taxes and no additional taxes. I think this was really much needed, and especially if you see the kind of expenditures or the kind of loan repayments which are due, I think this is a great step where the common citizens and the industry will not be burdened. Again, we are seeing that there is a lot of आमी जर आकडे पळयले आमी पळयतात की जे रेवेन्यू आमी सरप्लसान आसा आणि दिस सरप्लस हॅज बीन इन्क्रीजिंग year on year, आणि फिस्कल डेफिसिट जे आज इज ऑल्सो इन नेगेटिव्ह बट इट इज विदिन द FRBM लिमिट्स अँड इट हॅज बीन रिड्युसिंग फ्रॉम द लास्ट इयर विच आय थिंक इज अ पॉझिटिव्ह स्टेप. आमी जर मेजर अनाउन्समेंट्स तागेले पळयले जाल्यार देर हॅज बीन अ लॉट ऑफ फोकस ऑन इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर, देर हॅज बीन अ लॉट ऑफ फोकस ऑन सस्टेनेबिलिटी. River navigation, river dredging are two other points that the GCCI had put up. Very happy that those have been taken up. We had also asked for certain incentives for the cashew industry, which again have been taken up. Under VAT, it's again under the taxes. We are very happy to see that there will be a reintroduction of the one-time settlement scheme. The Sarkaran already 48 crores were already waived off the last time, and it's great that this scheme is going to come back again. Under the alcohol, under the VAT for alcohol, we are seeing that there will be a rationalization of those slabs, which again is a great step. आणि आम्ही पळयता की आता इट्स इवन दो देर इज नो कायंड ऑफ अ बर्डन ऑन द टॅक्स पेयर्स देर आर गोइंग टू बी ह्यूज अमाउंट्स ऑफ एक्सपेंडिचर्स. आमी हेंय पळयलां की सेंटरान ऑन 1st ऑफ फेब्रुवारी बजेट आशिल्लो आनी तांणी खुबशे तांचे जे इनिशिएटिव्ज आसात, बी इट फॉर द पावर, बी इट फॉर हॅव्हिंग अ ग्लोबल केपेबिलिटी सेंटर GCC जे म्हणटात, दे हॅव ऑल्सो केप्ट मेनी ऑफ दोज कायंड ऑफ प्रोविजन्स इन लायन with the center. So I really hope that, I really welcome this budget, and I really hope that the state's budget will align and synergize with the central's budget, and it's really going to help the industry and the citizens.
With this initial reaction, how TTAG kadin vata, I want a reaction from which is the surviving industry right now after mining in Goa. Tanche reaction boya TTAG चे.
See, mainly when it comes to the budget, tourism as such does not have any great expectations as such. We look for the continued focus on infrastructure. So we are very happy to see that he's again mentioned the convention center at Dona Paula, which is a major demand of the industry, as MICE is the fastest growing segment along with weddings. Hopefully that comes true. And when it comes through as a proper convention center, unlike what happened in Pato, wherein a convention center was put in an area where we absolutely had no scope for a convention center, and now they are trying to do something else with it, which hopefully comes to some, it fructifies in some way. The other major thing, the other major thing that we have been very happy with the government overall is there's been a continued focus on easing the registrations for business, ease of doing business, at least for those in business. So it's announced now that water, electricity and sewage will come through a single window system. So that is a positive. There has been increase in registrations in hotels because the registration has made easily. So in terms of these two measures, we are happy to hear about that.
I'll move to CREDAI, the real estate industry. Rajesh Bab.
Thank you for having me. आमचे थोडे एक्सपेक्टेशन्स आशिल्ले आमी प्री बजेट मेमोरेंडमाक ही सांगिल्ले, तातूंतले CM साहेबान मोस्टली he has agreed for most important things which we had asked for. आमचे 2 वर्सांसून चालू आशिल्ले. एक आशिल्लो की इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर टॅक्स जो आता हळूहळू 2 वर्सां फाटीं तो खूब वाडयल्लो फ्रॉम अ लोअर वॅल्यू, तर तो इट बिकम्स एन इनिशियल कॅपिटल विच इज ब्लॉक्ड फॉर अ डेव्हलपर. सो तो आमी रिक्वेस्ट केल्लो की आमकां 50-50 दिया, 50% वायल at the initial level when we take the permission, and the second one when we take occupancy. The CM sahiban, it was our demand last year also, पण ह्या वर्सा CM saran he has accepted this. आमचे तेजे बरोबर रॅशनलायझेशन ऑफ रेजिस्ट्रेशन आणि स्टॅम्प ड्युटी आमी मागिल्ली. ही आमचे डिस्कशना वागत त्यांनी सांगिल्लें की आय एम नॉट गोइंग टू गिव यू एनी बेनिफीट इन तालुकास विच आर डेव्हलपिंग. सो बॅकवर्ड तालुकास आसा तेका आमी कितें तरी वर्कआउट करूया म्हणून, आनी दॅट वी हॅव सीन इट की वी विल अवेट द डिटेल्स, पण एस्पेशली 3-स्टार हॉटेल्स आणि हॉस्पिटल्स टू बी सेटअप इन बॅकवर्ड तालुकास तेंच्यांनी GST वेवर, स्टेट GST वेवर आणि स्टॅम्प ड्युटी रेजिस्ट्रेशन अमाउंटाक कितें तरी 50% अशें सांगलां. डिटेल्स आयले उपरांत चड कळटले. सो दॅट इज ऑल्सो एक्सेप्टेड. थर्ड आनीक एक डिमांड आशिल्लो की इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर, बेजिकली सेवरेज इज अ मेजर प्रॉब्लम. कित्याक आमी जे पळयता आतां आमचो डिमांड आशिल्लो की मेजर 3 एरियाज विच आर लो लायंग एरियाज, एस्पेशली 2 ऑफ देम, तालिगांव एक, करंजळे एक, कलंगूट, बागा, कांदोली ती एक सायड, आणि पोरवरीम. These projects are going on for quite some time. So एक नियरली अबाउट सम प्रोजेक्ट्स आर गोइंग ऑन फॉर 10-12 years. पयलीं झिकान आशिल्ले, मागीर आतां PWDन आशिल्ले, आनी आतां सिवरेज कॉर्पोरेशनात सकल आशिल्ले. सो CM साहेबान ही हॅज allocated lot of funds. We wait the details की we just want it to be completed. These are not commissioned. There is money being spent every year. We want it completed so that each project, आता फक्त partial completion has happened with Baga. So we are very happy to know that he is allocated funds. So the minute funds are allocated, I would assume Sewerage Corporation will move towards finishing these projects, at least one by one in certain areas.
Oh. So
overall, a very positive budget for us as per our demands.
वी विल वेट फॉर डिटेल्स म्हणून एक 3-4 फाटी तुम्ही शब्द वापरला. ओके, विथ दॅट विल मूव टू CII. हर्ष.
Yes, so we welcome the budget of Goa state, and mostly it's aligned with the central budget. India being a federal structure, the state has certain subjects, primarily land. So as we see in the budget, the CM has announced the state maritime board, sewerage board, and also drinking water board, making a platform for Goa state and the people of Goa, for the benefit of the people. So the total gross state domestic product also has increased to 1,36,000, which is a growth of 14%, which is higher than the national growth of India. And the policies of development, the state has followed the national policy of Honorable Prime Minister Modi of Atmanirbhar and Viksit Bharat, and looked towards attaining all central schemes and policies. Certain mentions which the CM made was for tax holidays for 3-star hotels and rebate in rural areas. Also one mention was for investor investing more than 5,000 crores. They will be providing tax holiday and rebate. I think that's an interesting scheme considering our budget size being 28,000 crores. Further, the CM also mentioned other important schemes wherein restoration of certain archaeological sites and other spendings which are being showing in terms of cruise terminal at MPT port. This will try to boost the tourism sector, and other regenerative tourism forms have also been mentioned. Details are awaited on the same. Further, affordable housing also he mentioned. The details we'll be waiting to look at that. And further, digitization of all records and geo mapping as well. That will be quite crucial for the state. So overall, we welcome the budget, and it's in line with the central policy. And one more mention which I would like to make is that the fiscal deficit permissible limit, which is 3.5%, I think we are well within that figure. So the CM also announced a revenue surplus, so which is, however, the debt is still there. So as per the Goa Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act 2006, the state has to progressively look to reduce the total debt, which is, I think, around 27,000 crores. So which will be a future liability to the next generation. So the state must look at various schemes to reduce the thing by generating revenue. So I think one of the mentions that he made was revenue generation from Mopa Airport. So last 3 months they have shown a profit of around 30 crores, which is Goa state having 26% stake in the airport. And other schemes that he's mentioned are auction of sand mining blocks and also dump mining, which plus additionally 9 mining leases also he plans to auction. So we will be awaiting on the details on the
So
same.
with this initial, I think the industry is very positive. It's a good sign, but you are hopeful on the debt management. We see that proposal 2-3 ताणे हातूंत उल्लेख केल्या. एक म्हणजे he is moving for PPP. दुसरे he is speaking about apprenticeship. तिसरे they are focusing on CSR. So सरकार, आणि fourth he is focusing on central funds. So आपलो debt manage करपा खातीर minimum fiscal deficit जोरून चडांत चड स्टेक होल्डरां कडल्यान घेवप, इंडस्ट्री कडल्यान घेवप, सेंटरा कडल्यान ग्रांट घेवप, हाजे कडेन सरकाराचो कल दिसता. पूण ती प्रपोजल्स अशी असतात की ती मटेरियलायज जावची पडटा, बिकॉज दे आर 40-50 फायनान्सिंग, 75-25 फायनान्सिंग, समटायम 90 प्रपोजल अप्रूव जावचे पडटात. विथ दीस आय विल फर्स्ट कम टू TTAG, द टुरिझम सेक्टर. इफ यू लुक एट द फिगर्स, 70% of the revenue on the revenue side comes from tax and non-tax. Other part is from granting aid and sharing taxes. So considering, हांव सुखीच्या बापाक विचारता, high prices, inflation has been a concern for tourism industry. It is always की गोंयाक म्हारग, गोंया येतले जाल्यार म्हारग, रावतले जाल्यार म्हारग, भोंवतले जाल्यार म्हारग, वतले जाल्यार म्हारग. So ही म्हारगाय has been a sticking issue. सरकार जेन्ना 70% टॅक्स आनी नॉन टॅक्स फ्रॉम द टॅक्स तातूंत GST आयलो, कमर्शियल टॅक्स आयलो, एक्सायज आयलो, सगळें आयलें, वेटी आयलो, पयलीं सेल्स टॅक्साच्यो केजी आयल्यो आनी नॉन टॅक्साक वॉटर बिलींग इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिलींग सगळी फीज स्टॅम्प ड्युटी सगळ्यो आयल्यो. How do you look at this 70% component coming from, because it seems to be indirect taxation which can be regressive for a sensitive industry like tourism. How do you look at this 70% component coming from tax and non-tax?
So I am not a economist to really analyze whether that money will come in or not. But overall, the taxes here have been kept constant. There has been no change in the GST. There has been no change in the VAT. There's been no change in excise as far as I can see from his tax proposal. So if they've been earning that revenue earlier, and whether we like it or not, the industry is growing. The figures show there were some 10.6 million tourists, out of which 9.9 million were 10.4 million, out of which 9.9 million were domestic and 460,000 were foreigners. So the domestic growth is 15 to 16%, and if they are still coming in, there is always a multiply effect, because fuel is consumed, so there's a multiply effect on that. VAT is being consumed on fuel as well. So I think if they're hitting at least 90% of their tax targets, that you can project that 90% will come in. I don't think, and there is a better compliance now because many more people are coming on board.
हांव GCCI कडेन होच प्रश्न व्हरतां की सी from the mining closure 10 years back in 2012, if you look at today, the GDP has grown from 35,000 crores to 1.38 lakhs crores. It's almost 4 times jump. But if we look at excise, it's hardly doubled. Stamp duty hardly doubled. Commercial tax has risen 2.5 times, from 2,000 crores to 2,500 crores for past. It will be 4,000, touching 4,500 crores this year. It's 2.5 times. So lot of informal sector is eating into the formal businesses. It seems the component of informal sector in this GDP growth is too much, because commercial tax, the excise, the stamp duty, all these things are not rising proportionate to the GDP. So how are you looking, because it will further burden the industry for this tax, and how are you looking at this scenario? Has the government been able to successfully control the informal sectors, informal economy that's growing at the तांचे टुरिजमा सांगले तशें कोण गेस्ट हावज चलयता, कोण पॅरलल 25 टॅक्सी चलयता, एपाक येना आसतना कोण रेंट बायक चलयता, कोण स्विमींग फार्म हावजांनी विला काडटा. Lot of informal things are happening, but the burden comes on formal. How is the GCCI looking at this?
So, पळयात कितें आसा की as far as the taxes are concerned, see, as government is using a very unique approach, by in which it is trying to see that the informal sector is also within the ambit, but it is also not raising the taxes. As a very good example, just last year what they have done is, पयली पळय आमकां VAT right now is only for the alcohol and the petroleum products. पयली कितें आसतालें, एक थ्रेशोल्ड लिमीट आसतालो, आनी त्या थ्रेशोल्ड लिमिटाचेर जर तूं वयर आसा जाल्यारूच तुका VAT रजिस्ट्रेशन करपाक जाय आशिल्लें. लास्ट इयर गव्हर्मेंटान तो VAT थ्रेशोल्ड काडून उडयला. हाजो अर्थ, every person who is dealing in alcohol for human consumption has to not only register under excise, he has to also register under VAT. हाजो अर्थ, तू जर, even if you are a small dealer, okay, then also you have to register. So आज कितें जाला, even for the informal sector, even if you are making a very small kind of a sale, then also you have to not only take an excise license, you have to also take a VAT license. हाजो अर्थ कि now you are coming inside the formal sector. But because now this is becoming a kind of a compliance burden for them, Goa government has come out and said that, as far as the sector with a kind of a small turnover is concerned, तांकां आमी एक composition scheme हाडटले, आनी ती composition scheme तुका दर वर्सा तुमकां रिन्यू करची पडटाली as long as you are below the threshold. आमी आतां पळयता की as far as this budget is concerned, there is a very good announcement. तातूंत तांणी म्हणलां की सपोज जर तुमी एकदा composition scheme घेतली, and if you are not going above that kind of a limit, you do not even need to or require to do the renewal. This was a kind of another kind of a great point. This was was also a similar matter was also there for the tourism license earlier, where they removed the renewals, and now they have removed the kind of the renewal as long as you're below the threshold limit for composition kind of scheme. So this is how the government is very happy to get the informal sector into the picture, and as far as the formal sector, again it becomes a kind of a level playing field.
Informal sector, in fact, one good thing is it reduces the burden on government for employing. It employs, though the revenue doesn't come to kitty to that extent, but it reduces the load of employment. आता ताणी म्हणले तशें आज इकॉनॉमिक सर्वेक फिगर्स आयल्यात 1,05,000 टुरिस्ट पावल्यात एक पूण हातूंत हार्डली 4.5 लाख इंटरनॅशनल, उरिल्ले सगळे आर डोमेस्टीक. दॅट रिफ्लेक्ट्स इन वॅट, म्हणजे कॉमर्शियल टॅक्साक रिफ्लेक्ट जायना, बट वॅट हॅज ग्रोन फ्रॉम 400 crores to 1,800 crores. इट विल टच ऑलमोस्ट 2,500 crores दीस इयर. म्हणजे हे टॅक्सी घेवन भोंवता, जीपी घेवन येता, ते सगळे पेट्रोलां भरता, जीपी भरता ते, बट इट डजंट रिफ्लेक्ट in the hotels. I will come to real estate now and then to CII on the issue. As far as this real estate is concerned, एक मायनिंगाक पयलीं हें येतालें की गोंयचे मिनेर मायनिंग जेन्ना करतात ते सगळें सांबाळून करतात, स्लो करतात, सगळ्यांक विचारांक घेतात, तांचें मायनिंग स्लो. आनीक भायले प्लेयर आयले की अकस्मात हें जातलें, एग्रेसीव मायनिंग जातलें अशी भंय आसताली. तसोच रियल इस्टेटीचे बाबतींत आज एक गोंयाक एप्रेन्शन तयार जालां की गोंयचे जे बिल्डर आसात ते सामके अशे सगळें सांबाळून बिमाळून बारीक सारीक प्रोजेक्ट करपी, सगळ्यां सांबाळपी. आतां भायले जे बिल्डर येतात, दे कम विथ ह्यूज टाउनशीप, विथ ह्यूज मनी, ह्यूज प्रेशर, ह्यूज इन्फ्लुएन्स. तुमकां दिसता क्रेडाच्या वतीन की government has been able to tackle this real estate म्हणजे जे apprehension effectively, कारण हातूंत ह्या सेक्टराक, कारण that is the only sector which is performing, but seems there are lot of issues, some questionable issues. तुमकां कितें दिसता the most performing sector after tourism is real estate, whether the government has handled this sector properly?
तुम्ही जो आता पॉयंट रेज केलो, गोवा हो मार्केट मातसो, इट इज नॉट लायक नॅशनली दुसरे जे एरियाज आसा, सिटीज असो कितें असो, कित्याक व्हडले जे बिल्डर भायल्यान जे येता म्हणटा आमी, सो वेन दे कम दे थिंक दे कॅन प्लॅन अ बिगर प्रोजेक्ट, पण मागीर तेका सेल असो कितें असो ते पळयता की इट इज टेकिंग अ लॉट मोर टायम. सो तुमी रेअरली अशें पळयलां की दे आर देर फॉर लॉंगर टायम. सम कम फॉर अ प्रोजेक्ट आनी मागीर तांकां कळटा मार्केट सायज ही तशी ना, आनी दे हॅव नॉट लुक्ड एट अदर प्रोजेक्ट्स. आतां आमी एज क्रेडे मेंबर्स आमी तुमी सांगले भशेन आमी सगळे वी ट्राय टू वर्क अराउंड की सायजीस ऑफ द प्रोजेक्ट असो की वॉट लोकल्स लायक आनी वॉट पीपल प्रिफर, हय बजेटा प्रमाणे करपाचे. इवन हाय व्हॅल्यू करता पण ते लिमिटेड आसता. क्रेडे मेंबर्स आमचे आसा ते एक कितें जाला की रेरा आसल्यान फॉर्मल सेक्टरच चड, रेरा आयल्या पासून फॉर्मल सेक्टर आनी क्रेडे मेंबर्स आर इन अ वे have a upper hand compared to the earlier sector in which unknown people used to come and build apartments आणि त्याच्यान डिलिव्हरी जायना आशिल्ली, ते आता बऱ्यापैकी कमी जाला रेरा आशिल्ल्या कारणान. आणि तुम्ही जो रेस केल्लो तो पॉयंट, आता वी फील गव्हर्मेंट, इट इज नॉट समथिंग विथ द गव्हर्मेंट, द मार्केट हॅज ॲक्च्युली ॲडजस्टेड इट सेल्फ इन द सेन्स ऑफ की मार्केट डिसाइड्स. फ्रॉम आवर साइड आता तुम्ही एक जो पॉइंट काढिल्लो की स्टॅम्प ड्युटी कलेक्शन, गव्हर्मेंट हॅज रिसेंटली इन्क्रीज्ड स्टॅम्प ड्युटी, नॉट इन्क्रीज स्टॅम्प ड्युटी, इन्क्रीज द रेट ऑफ द लँड. सो गव्हर्मेंटाचो तो, बिकॉज इट वॉज डन इट मच लेटर, आय थिंक हार्डली अबाउट 3-4 months ऑफ दिस इयर. सो हेजो इफेक्ट जो कळटलो की स्टॅम्प ड्युटीचो ही गव्हर्मेंटाक रेवेन्यू विल बी इन्क्रीज्ड आणि गव्हर्मेंट विल सी दॅट बेनिफीट आउट ऑफ इट. हांवें एक पॉयंट विसरिल्लो युदोळ मेन्शन करपाक, तो अफोर्डेबल हावसिंग CM साहेबान सांगला अबाउट डुईंग इट थ्रू हावसिंग बोर्ड. देर वॉज वन इंटरॅक्शन विथ हिम बिकॉज ही वॉज अ पार्ट ऑफ द GST काउन्सिल विच वी हॅड. तेन्ना वी टोल्ड हिम की इफ यू वॉन्ट क्रेडाय कॅन असोसिएट with the government, either whichever nodal agency, and we can check with our members who would like to take up this affordable housing project. कोणाक जाय तेंका करू शकता आणि we can try and see if we can work together.
सो हांव CII कडेन वता ह्याच हाजेर बिकॉज यू आर अ कन्फेडरेशन ऑफ इंडियन इंडस्ट्री. हाव आर यू लुकिंग एट दीस रियल इस्टेट वेदर I mean these are the builders coming from Gurgaon, Delhi with huge township, huge investment. Are such projects feasible in Goa or feasible for them, would be feasible from them? There can be investor or from Goa or buyers in Goa. How, because to basically Goa was point out mage TTAG kvartalo. Basically Goa is a tourism destination. It's not like Dubai where it's a real estate centric tourism destination. Goa is a tourism destination which is eco-centric, beach-centric, spiritual tourism-centric, all those things. Can Goa tourism afford, प्रश्न मागीर हांव सुखीच्या बाबाक विचारतलो, can Goa afford such huge projects and township or real estates in such a sensitive tourism areas? How CII is looking at this developments?
So looking at the size of Goa, Goa is around 3,700 square kilometers. It is the smallest state in the country. 50% of our land mass is forest. We have a 180-kilometer coastline with CRZ, and around 8% are fields, NDZ, non-development slopes, and etc. So what developable area that is left is around 10%. On that we have height restrictions in cities. So with our demographic, I think the last census was done in 2011, wherein the population was approximately around 15 lakhs. Now the country has not done a census because of the COVID-19. So the migration in Goa has increased because of tourism and other factors. So Goa is attracting a lot of people from rest of the country. A, because they want to live here for better air quality, for better water supply, all these other perks that Goa offers. Additionally, as a tourist place as well, if any Indian wants to travel abroad, he requires a passport. So the best option for the Indians is to come to Goa. So looking at this point of view with the limitations on space, Goa will always have a high demand because it's a pure supply-demand ratio, wherein the demand for the land is always higher, wherein the supply is lower. So if the policies will have to be in such way wherein both are accommodated, like development as well as maintaining sustainable development with maintaining.
Otherwise, it will lead to it can lead to socio-economic issues.
Exactly. So other socio-economic issues will arise. So to keep sustainable development picture in mind, I think both need to be sustainable.
हांव TTAG कडेन वता. तुमकां होच प्रश्न तुमकां विचारता. अशे प्रोजेक्ट गोंयाक टुरिजम सेंट्रीक, जे इको सेंट्रीक, बीच सेंट्रीक, स्पिरिच्युअल हाजे सेंट्रीक, अशे प्रकारची रियल इस्टेट डेव्हलपमेंट जावप, टुरिजम कशें पळयता?
तुवें एकदम वॅलीड पॉयंट म्हणला. तर आतां तुवें पळयल्यार आमचें टुरिजमूय आहा तें स्पेसिफीक कोस्टलार आहा. पणजे धर, तूं ओल्ड गोवा धर, थोडें पोंडा धर, बट 80 to 95% is all along the coast. And Tingasor, the number one feedback when we have monitored on social media we have got is that today's Goa is getting overcrowded, there's a strain on resources, and it's not only real estate, it's also tourism, right? When you're building real estate, you're building villas where tourism is coming. So there is a issue with overdevelopment that is coming in with this thing, and we have to find a way to design it better so that, there are a lot of cities which have it. You have proper planning, I'm sure you can fit all this in, but that design thing is not still there amongst us Indians. We are still not a very design culture. And the other major issue that we have found, the reason I said we don't expect much from the budget is because there is not much that the CM can do on this. The four major issues we have, one is technology in transport, which has got socio-economic issues why it doesn't happen. The second one is your cleanliness along the highways. The third is like security, safety, or the perception. And the fourth is regulating businesses which are just not in the system. So these five are the major issues on tourism. This overdevelopment is an issue that we can solve with proper design. There has to be proper infrastructure. I don't know how you do it. You have to get an expert to do it.
हांव फुडले क्वेश्चना कडेन येता, GCCI कडेन. Recently we got a figures in the assembly की IPB म्हणजे स्पेशल पर्पज व्हेकल केलें. It has approved almost 105 projects, but only 12 to 13 आता मेरेन येवपा शकले. Hardly 7 to 8,000 तांणी जनरेट केला एम्प्लॉयमेंट. सो एज अ सिंगल विंडो सिस्टम IPB कडेन तुमी कशें पळयतात? IPB ही मटेरियलायज कित्याक जायना?
So I think
What's the issue?
Hi. See, because to have a single window is has got a lot of hurdles. It's got a lot of compliances. But I think it's an evolving process. I think the government has been taking a lot of efforts. In fact, as the action taken report ashillo, tatun sudda CM has said that now they have already got all the kind of departments on board for this kind of, to make it much more simpler and to have a kind of an ease of applying for any kind of a new project. So tumgele sagle even all your clearances dhara, tumche pollution dhara, all those matters, all those kind of departments have now come, have been onboarded, and I believe I think GL has been asked to also onboard. But has been asked to assist in this kind of a project.
There is a statement made by government before the court as far as IPB is concerned, that IPB is only a in principle approval body. The person has to go to all the departments because there was a petition challenging it. The other aspect to it, the other figures that have evolved is around government is now asking figures or employment from the industry, that how many locals are employed, how many outsiders are employed, all those things. Till date 2,500, now the MSME data that has come in the economic survey today is almost 6,500 MSMEs are there. But only around 2,400 had given their data. But the data says that around 85,000 employed are not from Goa, around 44,000 are Goans. So almost 3 times the employed ones are outside Goa, and just 44,000 in this 2,500 are Goans. So how are you now? On the other side, there is 80% they are issuing notification to notify that the vacancies, the skilling versus your wage bill, and how the industry is looking at this latest development now.
So for your first point, about the single window, see, single window kind of a system is not only for the state. In fact, the center also has been pushing. In fact, the center already has got a national single windows portal, and it's trying to see that all the states get onboarded. In fact, it is already live, and the center is also encouraging the industry as well as the states to get onboarded. Goa is already onboarded. A lot of services are already there on the NSFS. That is a national single window portal, and Goa again is also in line with the center to go ahead with this kind of a single window portal, so that it can also align with the national single window portal. As far as the kind of Goan employment, I think this is a kind of a topic which is really being taken up by the industry as well, and I believe it's more about the skilling and seeing that the kind of necessary the kind of a gap what the industry requires, if it is there in Goa. And we are seeing that even in this current budget, if you see certain schemes like the CM Kaushalya Yojana which has been announced, where very niche kind of professions are also now being encouraged, so that you get skilling in those kind of a professions, so that those type of jobs are now going to be available in Goa.
How CII कडे वता ह्याच प्रश्नाचेर. I'll go to CII. See, the issue is the skilling will generate employability, not the employment. Employment has to be generated by the primary, secondary or the tertiary sector. But the sad story of the manufacturing sector, if you look at Pan India, the same story is in Goa also. That the manufacturing sector and the primary sectors are the one who has to generate, they are labor intensive. Service sector isn't the one which generates too much of employment. Goa is a service industry mostly. It's almost 6.5. Now the latest economic surveys today says 6.57 is primary sector. On tertiary and manufacturing sectors are around 45%, 45 to 50%. So if you have such a sad story of a manufacturing sector, how will you generate employment in such a from the CII perspective? You can give me a pan national and pan Goa scenario. If the manufacturing sector doesn't grow, how will you generate the jobs? Because as far as primary sector is concerned, mining is almost closed. It's not able to start for last 12 years. Now other sector is manufacturing. How are you looking at this job generation? Because skilling will create employability and not employment. The concern is, that's why these apprenticeship schemes and all are coming. How is CII looking at it?
Right. So if you look at Goan industry per se, the core after mining is tourism. After that is manufacturing. So wherein in manufacturing, the core industries which are there is pharmaceuticals, certain engineering goods, IT and engineering goods, as well as certain organic chemicals which are there, fertilizers, certain tire manufacturers are there. So I think CM in the budget today announced that the per capita income of Goa is 9 lakh, above 9 lakh. So if you look at these industries per se, they are blue collared employees. So to generate this employment, the government has been trying to bring in other new industries. So the electronic city in Tue and developing all these drone manufacturing facilities and other facilities. They have also focused on shipbuilding, wherein the national policy also of India is to progress in the maritime space, wherein both for naval vessels as well as for private vessels. So in Goa, we have some private companies which are manufacturing renewable ships using battery operated engines. So these are bulk carriers of 10 to 15,000 tons approximately. And additionally, you also have the Goa shipyard.
But the issue here is, can it generate the jobs for, because the skilling, if you look at in Goa, you don't find a skilling to that extent for such industry. That could be an issue. Yes,
so if you see the number of students that the state produces for engineering and MBA, I mean, there are around 3,500 students come every year. So typically in the budget also, I think the CM announced some new ITI and skilling. So skilling will be there, but the job intake will depend only if industry comes in.
Because even the IPB, the projects
Yes.
that have been approved are mostly from service sector, and very few are from, mostly they are from real estate or hospitality. Very few are from manufacturing. I'll go to now CREDA and the tourism. There are 2-3 figures that have come from CAG. One is the KTC, GTDC and IDC. KTC's losses, accumulated losses till date are minus 169 crores. GTDC, that's a Goa Tourism Development Corporation, is minus 15 crores. And IDC is minus 107 crores. These are all related to tourism. So I would go to TTAG now. These are the performing sectors actually in Goa. But if you look at these special purpose vehicles, we are speaking of the mass transit system. KTC is performing at a cumulative loss of minus 169 crores. This is 2022-23 balance sheet cleared by CAG. GTDC at minus 15. And how are you looking at the performance of special purpose vehicle or these corporations of the government in the performing sector, service sector?
I think it's very clear government has no competence to run business. These corporations, I don't know about KTC, but GTDC at least it ends up doing projects which have no connection with tourism at all. And I'll be blunt on that. I'm a director on that. It does projects which are not got any connection with tourism. And in the end, that assets which should actually generate revenue do not generate revenue. So I think it's something they should look at, how they can streamline this and not just use it as things which get into areas they have no competence to go into.
So how is the CREDA looking at such things? Because these are all the service sector related areas. Even it is linked to tourism, the people who are coming to Goa. You are speaking of government is speaking of mass transit system. I mean, how is the real estate looking at these issues? The performance of even at GSIDC, if you are looking, Now government today spoke about getting the projects done through PPP, through National Construction Corporation. In fact, the GSIDC was came into existence to have special as a special purpose vehicle for special projects. Now GSIDC is doing the PWD's job. They are constructing those things, and such big scale is big projects of scale are being given to the corporation like National Corporation Construction Corporation at PPP level. GSIDC could also do that. How you are looking at this construction aspect of the GSIDC, which is supposed to raise the infrastructure in Goa?
I remember GSIDC was basically formed as a offshoot of apart from PWD, because of PWD had a lot of work to do, and this was mainly for infrastructure development. Though initially it probably served its purpose also by doing some projects, but I think over a period of time it has not been able to keep up with what the actual market situation is. And as TTAG president has also said, if government gets into the business, it is kind of a little difficult because trying to run it efficiently becomes a problem. So we feel trying to get into PPP or otherwise strengthening GSIDC, they could do either of the cases, but a business since it's an operations, which it's a corporation, it has to be run like a corporation, which doesn't necessarily happen. So unless government makes it a point to run it as a corporation, I think it will always be a problem having some kind of either issues with respect to profits or delays, whichever way.
Actually, even the former finance minister had said once, it's none of the business of government to be in the business. So, I mean, with this I'm moving.
I think I just but in GTDC, when it started, the concept was great. We didn't have the infrastructure in place, whatever. But now over 30 years, tourism has grown. So do we still know those services come out of GTDC? Something that should be a question.
That's a very valid question. Now with this I'll move to the CII. Now we just had a look at the figures in this budget, where government is just keeping its budget surplus to fund the fiscal deficit or its debt, accumulated debt out of borrowing. On the other side, what's been happening is they are stressing on PPP, they are stressing on CSR, corporate social responsibility, and they are stressing on apprentice. How is the industry looking at it? Because post-COVID, first of all, let me ask whether post-COVID your balance sheets have improved or they are turning on a reverse side. And if that's the case, is the government, on the one side it is focusing on central fund, central grants, on the other side it is demanding more and more from the industry for job creation, for apprentices, for CSR. How would you balance this from your, this all has to be done from your profits and not the overall turnover. There has to be a profit for CSR. Then PPP has to be a viable project. How is the industry looking at this more? And this is the trend at the center also. They are going for monetization of assets. They want PPP and involvement. How is CII looking at these proposals of the government?
So if you look at the budget presently, the state has its limitations. So I think around 46% of the budget is for pensions and salaries. And plus there are various other populist schemes, both in the center and other states as well. So overall, there is a little stress on the finances. So the government actually has to focus on generating other ways of generating revenue to increase this. There's always a stress where the government will demand industry to generate jobs. But I think in the Prime Minister's vision, wherein they are talking about startup mission, they are encouraging entrepreneurship to come up. So they have started various schemes wherein, to encourage people to come up with their own industry or in a whatever small way wherein they can employ certain people, certain MSME funding which is there, they are supporting all of that. So typically, if the government in Goa focuses on certain core industries, we seriously require a vision for the state. So after mining shutdown, if the government can focus on any particular, maybe one or two large scale industry, it can attract to the state, and that will give a certain vision to the people that what do they follow. Because when mining was there were people who were in various allied industries, from shipbuilding, barges, machinery, all that. So that creates a various ancillary base wherein various people get employed. Like say for tourism, although it's 16% of our GDP, 35% of our population employed under that. So there are various ancillaries which can be created if the government comes with a certain vision to follow a one-track vision, basically, like how mining used to be there, basically.
So basically, if you are looking at the even the budget proposals today, the proposals that our government expect revenues from MAPA, it will give away the leases for sand mining, it will auction the ore, it will auction the leases, and it is expecting no proper or a fixed revenue expected figure has been given. I mean, it's hovering around 500 crores. So, I mean, the proposals aren't concrete. Proposals aren't concrete. Now, now the big question, I'll pose this question to all four of you. Now, the positioning of Goa is such that it can be a good logistical hub. It's connected by port, the rail, the air, the ports, the highways, with two major highways going from Goa. Now, there is pharma industry, there is tourism, everything, then there are ports. If we look at this positioning of a Goa, which can be developed as a logistical hub or an export hub, on the other side you have issues, socio-economic issues opposing these projects. Now, just now CM mentioned that Tamnar is through and it will be commissioned this year. Otherwise, rest all the projects, you see there is so less land available in Goa. You find every now and then whenever such logistic projects come up, they face the resistance. Now, what's the solution industry has so that these things can be served and the projects can go through, whether there are any technological solutions, whether there are any real estate solutions, infrastructural solutions, how it can be sorted out. Because this is a major component that can lead to the actual growth of GDP of the state. Because right now the 14% that we see is majorly 6 to 7% component of that is inflation. Because Goa is highly inflated. How the industry is looking at this scenario?
So if I get your question, basically you're asking about the logistics hub, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that you're trying to say is that there are the socio-economic issues which are pushing it back. So I think basically you have to decide that you have to have a design system in place which sees that whatever labor force you get is looked after and there is limited use on resources which go out, and plus this thing do it. How it has to be done through a consultative process. I think pharma is exporting 2 billion worth out of Goa. You have engineering goods, you have electronics. So those exports are happening. Now, if you want to grow it further, then basically you just have to see how you house the labor force and the industries are put in place. You have Siemens, you have other people who have been here for donkey's years. So,
how is CREDAI looking at it?
According to me, I think the infrastructure development which has taken place. So, if you really want to look at logistics, taking the Goa's income, state's income to increase. So we would look at it that rather than because along the highways, if these hubs can happen along the highways, it will have least resistance from or a pushback from a lot of other. Once you have the what you call it as either industries or something wherein you have to pass through some villages or something, then there is resistance which we face. So along the highways, if government plans, because Verna Industrial Estate now has a very good connectivity, so from that point of view, if you have some connected industries, I think in these places it will do very well, and it will definitely help Goa as a state and the whole, including real estate, because what happens is, from a real estate perspective, we just satisfy the need, what is the demand. Basically, if somebody wants to live here, wants to buy a house, is where we can't build something hoping that somebody will come and do it. So
So how
that's correct.
GCCI is looking, because you are the ones who will use this facility the most, the logistics.
Yeah. So see, Goa is in a very unique position today, because we have got 2 airports. We are having 3 major highways which are now going to be connected to Goa. So Goa is actually going to be in the fulcrum of the entire scene. So I believe, and we are also seeing that, the logistics and warehousing policy also is in the kind of final stages. So I think this is a very good opportunity as far as logistics and warehousing is concerned. Of course, stakeholder consultation is always the way forward. You have to always take everyone into confidence and go ahead. And I really feel that, there will be a lot of a kind of a multiplier effect of having these kind of schemes and having these kind of industries. One of the matters, which you had taken up was relating to the jobs, and I saw one proposal, in this budget, which I feel, if implemented right, would really have a great effect on Goa. Earlier we had, certain taxation schemes, when the pharma was coming, when we had to attract the pharma industry, we got the income tax exemptions, due to which many pharma industries came to Goa. Goa also had come out with a kind of an NPV scheme under VAT in 2006-2007, where again a lot of industries were attracted. And now we are seeing that a new proposal has come in, which is that they are saying that if there is an investment of more than 5,000 crores by any kind of a group or an organization.
Just I'll move to the last question to the CII. Our time is getting over. On the final mining, because we should touch that aspect also. I am coming to CII. How concrete you see the proposal of mining, the 12 mining blocks going through this year through the CII?
So typically, when it comes to mining, it's a central and a state subject, wherein the state only has the land which is there. Primarily, it is the MMRD Act which will govern the auction of the mining. So as per the judgment also of the Honorable Supreme Court, it has been said that the mines have to be auctioned. So out of which 2 mines have been successfully auctioned. And the state government only had some claim on the dumps which were there. So that also, there was a judgment of the past wherein they said that dumps also had to be auctioned. Now, the mechanism of how to auction the dumps was laid down, and I think Goa Foundation also had filed some cases against.
But there are a couple of lessees now who attempted to start, but there is a resistance on ground now. There are issues cropping up. So even after doing such meticulous exercise of auctioning and all those things, the buffer zone issue, the pollution issue, all those things are coming up. So how concrete do you feel that 12 blocks or the 14 blocks will go through this year? That's the issue.
Yeah, so typically some of the blocks are stuck for environment clearance and other clearances which are there. So it's a time-bound process. So eventually any lessee applying for the lease will have to follow each procedure, because those are the central guidelines. So typically the state may claim that they will start, but typically they'll have to follow the procedures laid down by the center. Otherwise, it'll keep going back and forth into the court.
Last
One
reaction
thing,
from
when you mentioned about corporations, one other suggestion which I have is these corporations have to be done by a professional CEO with no political appointee. Right now, the chairman is someone who has a political agenda, and it is like a gift given to him. So there is no interest in the corporation. It is my 5 years in charge.
So with this we are coming to the end of this show. तुमको पळयला आसतलें तुमी, industry is by and large positive about the budget. They are hopeful about the budget. पूण आकडे जर पळयत जशे आमी पंचनामो करतात, सरकार आपले फिस्कल प्रुडन्स दवरपाक, फिस्कल शिस्त दवरपा खातीर चडांत चड बॉरोईंग पयलीं क्लियर करून स्पेंडिंगा खातीर इंडस्ट्रीचेर, सेंट्रल गव्हर्मेंटाचेर रिलाय रावता, बॉरोईंग कमी करता, बॉरोईंग रिपे करता. एका अर्थान फिस्कल प्रुडन्स अथवा लायबिलिटी कमी करप ही बरी गजाल, पूण सरकाराच्या स्वताच्या रेव्हेन्यू जनरेशनाचेर स्वताच्या रेव्हेन्यू स्पेंडिंगाचेर मोठ्या प्रमाणांत कन्स्ट्रेंट्स हे ह्या बजेटांतल्यान दिसता. होप इंडस्ट्री जशी होपफूल आसा, पॉझिटिव्ह आसा, तें बजेट इंडस्ट्रीची एक्सपेक्टेशन जायत अशें चालीक लायतलें आनी गोंयाचो GDP खऱ्या अर्थान ग्रो करपी कितें तरी नवे प्रोजेक्ट, नवें एम्प्लॉयमेंट जनरेशन वेगवेगळ्या सॅक्टरांनी गोंयाक जातलें अशी अपेक्षा करतात आनी हो शो स्पेशल बजेट शो आमी सोबयतात. थँक्स. कीप वॉचिंग प्रुडंट.